Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals in the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories, to overcome adversity and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose.
Well, hello everyone. On this episode of Identity Unboxed, we're having a special conversation today with Larry Marshall. He's a member in the Seattle community, a volunteer for the Seattle Chamber of Commerce Welcome Committee and the Northwest Film Forum. And when we met back in March at Seattle Town Hall, he told a very moving story about his son and the impact that gun violence had on his family. And so we're going to have a special episode today and open up the floor for Larry to share his story, his son's story, given that, gun violence survivors are also the family members of those who lost their lives. And so thank you, Larry, for being here. And we're really looking forward to just having this conversation and giving you the space to share your story and, also give some words of wisdom for folks who are going through similar struggles.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, man. And again, it's a pleasure to be on this podcast. My first time on a podcast, too. So this is amazing. This is one of those bucket lists that you want to do.
There you go.
We're so happy to have you.
So I guess we can get started with our first question. When we met back in May at Town Hall Seattle, you opened up about the tragic loss of your son, Larry Marshall III, due to gun violence. Can you tell us about your son and the circumstances of this tragedy?
So they always say that things happen in faith. And I believe in it, but, it's hard to accept. So my son was going to Foss High School by Cheney Stadium in Tacoma, Washington. And had some issues there. Good student. He was one of those kids that didn't like bullies. So to be seeing another kid get picked on, it really got to him. So his issues in school was making sure other kids were okay. So, and the school couldn't protect it. With school, they have it to where they got to protect their staff to where if there's a fight and an adult gets involved, then they're liable for things. So a lot of his fights were recorded on social media. So we ended up trying to get him out of that school. And the day that he passed away, we were going to enroll him into Silas. Me and him were meeting home, and I had texted him, and he said he was home because he was coming from downtown Seattle, and I was coming from Renton at a different place. And if I rewind just a little bit further back, we used to ping his phone to see where he's at. And before I got hired here in the Hampton Inn Seattle, he didn't know I was applying for this job. And it was to spend more time with him and to switch my schedule from working around the clock at a hotel. And I applied for the job here. For the crazy part is he was staying a night here. He had some friends that came from Portland. And there's only one Hampton Inn in downtown Seattle. So this is like the weirdest thing ever. So we pinged his phone and got the address. And then when I looked at it in the morning, he was on his way home, leaving downtown. So I work at the place my son had his last trip. So it's like the most amazing thing ever. So it's like, it feels good to be here. And so as he's catching a bus home, I've seen him getting home, and I remember seeing him passing South Center. I was like, okay, I got time. Still to get to Tacoma. So he texted me he's home. So I asked him what he want from McDonald's, not looking at my text never withdrew. So by the time I pulled up at home, he was gone. And when I looked at the camera, he left at 12:42. I pulled up at 1:05. So I literally missed my son by 20 minutes. And like 2 days before that, I met his I guess you want to say girlfriend. I'm not sure. She came by the house driving a car, and she was a sweetheart. So I'm eating my McDonald's downstairs, and I get this crazy knock at the door at about 1:30. Well, like 1:45, and his girlfriend said something happened to Trae. And I'm not sure what's going on. So I'm like, I called my wife to give me his location again. And his girlfriend said she had it. So we just drove to TCC. And come to find out, a week beforehand, before my son passed, his friends, and I have to say friends because he hung out with them. He was going to go play video games with them that day. They were in the barbershop in Tacoma Mall. And that's where me and my son had got our haircut at all the time. And they robbed this guy in a wheelchair. I guess he was a known gang-affiliated member. And the story is all over YouTube. So his name is Lil Gotti, his street name. And they walked up to him and asked him for his stuff and hit him. And one of the boys had a machine gun in his backpack facing frontward. This is at like 1:30 in the afternoon in Tacoma Mall on a Sunday. And there's a little girl with her dad behind these people. And this guy's in a wheelchair getting his hair cut. And if I could pause for a moment in the story, this is where it gets so crazy. My son was at home when we pinged his phone when this happened. And the guy they robbed, he has the same barber as me and my son. So I'm not sure if his friends knew that or not, but so they robbed him, they hit him, pushed him out the chair, and at the end, the boy that's the oldest, I think he's 19, called out his street name, Taliban. And they leave. And I guess the next day, I go in the barbershop to get a haircut, and I'm listening. This is how weird the story. The barber is telling me, yeah, I had to protect my client. These guys try to rob him and everything. And in my head, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. We're just talking barbershop talk. Not knowing that situation was going to get my son killed. So my son caught the bus from Tacoma Mall to TCC. And as he got off the bus, the guy in the wheelchair that got robbed had rented a red Charger from Enterprise. Same car the day he got robbed, pulls up next to my son, get off the bus. And they knew my son was affiliated with those kids because he took a picture with them on social media. And you could see the exchange. The detective said at the transit center, like they're asking them some questions. The car pulls up and it's 3 people inside. And you see my son, they say something to them as he's on the phone with his girlfriend. And he gets back on the phone, the car goes up the street and U-turns. My son doesn't pay attention. And they know the apartment complex is right across the street from TCC. So they back into the gate so they can exit out quickly, I'm guessing. So my son walks through the gate, off screen through the grass, and a 16 and 17-year-old get out the car and go off screen because it's all on video, which I'm glad that the final part is not on. But I guess 33 shots rang. I hit my son 3 times. And the girl said my son was running, and then the phone fell. And you heard the breathing stop, and then they drove off. So it's like, in hindsight, it's the weirdest thing. My son leaves out at 12:42. By 1:30, he was pronounced dead. So it was like it was the weirdest day ever. And my first thought was just to get to my youngest. I have a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old. My 19-year-old now, at the time she was in school, had found out, and she had ran home after I had left. And my first thought was that I called my 14-year-old school and told them to take her cell phone and lock her in a room. So she had no idea what had happened. And it was just trying to understand the basis of it all, that to know my son had nothing to do with it. He wasn't even there. Nowhere to be found. And it's the weirdest part, to where the guys they wanted are still out there. So it's like my son lost his life over something someone else did. And the killer had the same barber as me and my son. That's how small the world works. So it's a crazy story, but it was just kids. It's like these adults recruit these kids to do their dirty work here in Seattle because they're not going to get time attached to them because of their age. And in Washington State, they always say the brain is not developed. Well, these kids understand. I think their brain is developed a little bit more, not all the way, but they know enough to where social media is going to speed up the process to show them how to do things. So they go out there and TikTok show them how to steal kids. And, it's just like, just like the Aurora prostitute and pimping, like they're solicited and, trafficking women. Well, the gang people are trafficking kids. They're trying to recruit them early, and instead of kids outside playing basketball, they're telling them, hey, go make me some money or go rob this person. I'm going to give you this much money. And I feel that's what the part that we're not talking about in the news. We're not talking about how these kids are going to the older adults, and then they're playing hide and seek with guns, basically. That's what I call it now. That's basically what's going on. We're playing hide and seek with guns, and in the middle of them playing hide and seek, there's going to be some casualties to where, like, innocent people get killed that had nothing to do with the situation. So it's an ugly world right now, and it really is. And that was like the most worst day of my life. Oh, man.
I'm so sorry for your loss, and that's just absolutely devastating. I can't imagine the pain that you're feeling, and to be able to now move forward with that and speak to the pervasiveness of gun violence. And what I believe you were directing to was the effects of systemic racism and how many of these kids are usually looking for some type of community, family, or stability. And they turn often to gangs to find that. And it just continues to harm everyone that's within the vicinity. As you said, your son was not involved in this, but he was caught in the crossfires of this horrible incident. And I was hoping you'd be able to speak a bit more about navigating this loss. And I know this is not an easy journey under any circumstance. And if you could tell us a bit more about your healing journey, how you handled grieving, and how you have kept faith since his passing.
So it's like it went through some. I still do sometimes, but initially went through some dark places. Like me and Tequila were best friends. We didn't sleep in our room. We slept on the couch for a long time, for almost a year, me and my wife. And we would drink. I would drink a lot personally, and I just gave up a lot. I think 90% of drinking. So I've lost like almost 50 pounds from that time. And it was a lot of tequila and a lot more of just diet changes to certain things I do. But it was hard because you got, you lose your son. And we weren't on the same page all the time because I'm a tough dad. I'm an old school tough dad. So my wife used to always tell me, you got to be a little more sensitive to these kids and talk to them a little different. And I didn't understand it, but I started getting it towards the end a little bit more. So me and my son were not on bad terms. So that's one thing that I loved. We spoke, we text. He was home. He stayed home. He was just one of those kids that just couldn't sit still. He had to be doing something. And that's what these kids are now. They just need something to do that intrigues their mind. And I always feel like I figured it out, but I don't. And then always, I talked to his friends, some of his friends, I asked them, I said, come on over. I made them burgers one day. These kids like to eat, but they don't like to sit still. But you say food, they run right over it. Like, burgers and fries, yes. And I asked them, I was like, the questions, I was like, why do you guys do these things? Why do you guys carry guns? And why, and what makes you do it? Because, it was one of those things in my journey that I just didn't understand. And they told me, they was like, well, Pops, if we fight them, they're going to turn around tomorrow and kill me. So that's the analogy down these days. And it makes sense. These kids they're a little more softer than, like our parents were. Our parents had it tougher. I had it tougher. And their respect and their pride is all they really have. So you take that from one of them, they can't go out into the world. They feel shame. And And I'm not making logic out of shooting, killing somebody, but that's the analogy that in their head that they see. So I might as well kill them first, so I can at least go out tomorrow and not have to look over my shoulder and over my left and right shoulder. I'd rather just look over one. So, and that's where it comes from, and it sucks to think like that. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense, but now I'm starting to understand it more and more, because I dive into the process of my healing journey is just understanding the world and how to make it better. And like when I think I got a grasp on it, it changes, but the narrative is still the same. And it just like, I guess politics made it more so believable just in the last few weeks. You need younger leaders. And that's why I say I envy what you guys are doing, because it's like we adapt to the newest iPhone coming out every year. Everybody lines up, got to get the technology. We go, and some people even go to the unveiling. They're like, oh my God, this feature. And they learn it and study it. But in real life right now, and it's nothing against Democrat Republicans, I'm not saying that, we have an older president. The criteria is you have to be this many years old, done all this, but they can't tell the new generation what to do. It doesn't make sense. So, and that's my analogy to where I listened to Jamal Crawford say it too as well. The game of basketball has evolved to a 3-point shooting contest. And the coaches don't like it. People don't like it. No, you need younger coaches to understand the new era of basketball. And that's the missing factor in I think our society is that person that could understand the youth and still explain it to the older, the uncles and the older people of higher above. And it's a dangerous situation, because you got to go places that other people don't want to go. And I'm not saying that's not me, because I'm still in my journey, but you got to find someone that can do it. And that's what I've been like, really, that's been my healing journey, just trying to understand it and trying to push that narrative anytime I get a chance to on the floor, because, it feels great to speak about my son in the light that he was in, because, some of these kids don't get to tell their stories because of all the bad things they've done in the past, and it sucks to say that, because, some of these teenagers that get killed have a bad rap sheet, and it's scary, but, the one thing I loved about what the news said about my son, he had $1 million smile, was a football player. You couldn't take that away from him. You couldn't put a ski mask on my son and all this craziness on him, because he was a good kid. He got in trouble, which all boys do, girls do, but he didn't have that narrative, that, he was a killer. And it sucks, because I knew that kid. Brad, he would give you his jacket off his back that I just bought him, or some brand new shoes that I bought him yesterday. He was like, he'll wear them yesterday, and the next day his friends got to wear them. He's got to make sure everybody gets that feeling of what it feels like. And that's one thing about Trae, is he didn't like nobody to be sad, and he didn't like that energy. He's got to be upbeat and going and in that space of mind. And I didn't understand him at first, and that's the hard part. My wife understood my son, but I did it. And I wish I listened quicker and sooner, but, it's that feeling now to where every day I come to work, you can feel his presence sometimes. So it's like, sometimes I think he's messing with me, sometimes it's just the weirdest feeling to know that that's his last dream. So, my youngest daughter's 14, and her birthday is 2 days after my son's. So it's like his birthday December 8th, hers is the 10th. So it's really difficult, but we managed to do well this first birthday, and that's my focus though. That's my journey of healing, is my youngest. My 19-year-old, she's got to navigate her way through it, because I feel like, she's in college and Olympic, and she comes home during the summer. So her healing, her grief is going to be a little more different, because she's always going out into the world. So we just monitor her and just track her a little bit more. But my youngest is my worries, because she's seen so much. And a little off subject, just the last Father's Day, I lost my cousin. He was a 22-year-old that got killed in Mount Baker. And I texted him a week before he died, and he was upset about the Garfield shooting. And he was still upset about my son shooting. And I was like, don't do nothing stupid. And he was like, I promise you I won't. I'll love you. And my 14-year-old daughter texted him at 10:30 and said, be safe, cousin, I love you. And he was like, okay. She was like, no, be safe. By 2:30, he was dead. So, like, my youngest has seen a lot at 14, and everything that she gets close to disappears. My oldest was hanging out with my 22-year-old cousin a lot, but she totaled her car like a week before he died. So, had she not totaled her car, she would have been in that crossfire too. So it's just like, I learned that I got to be the leader and the protector, but also just to try to teach my girls about trying to talk to her friends. Because, we can't save the world, but we can try to save one person at a time. And if I can say one or two people would get a word across to them, that'll go a long way, because that one or two eventually can turn into 4. And, it may go back and go up, but it's the conversation starter. Like you guys say, and that's the one thing that I try my best at. I sit at home and think about it all the time, where I came from and how far I came. But, it's hard. It's hard. Every day is different, now I live in a house full of women. So I say, I say it's a lot of estrogen going on in here. So it's just so hard. I got to run away, because one day the girls are going at it, and then they try to use dad as the middle person. I'm like, I don't want to be involved. So it really is hard, but they're great, man. They're great, and that's my job now. I feel like my son tells me to protect the family, and I'll be okay. And it just hurts, because that's what we keep losing people to. It's senseless gun violence, and there's no end result to it. It continues to happen, and then we're saying free this person or rest in peace to this person. And it sucks, because you have hurt people on both sides. And I'm going to be honest and transparent. Like, it's not right that a parent has to see their kid in jail, but it is right because he did a crime. And I feel like if we stiffen the punishments, then the light bulb will come on. These kids, it's going to take a couple of them to get a harsh punishment, but they're going to be like, okay, if I get caught, I got to do all this time, and I don't see none of these people no more. It'll put a light bulb in them, because these kids are so smart. Like, TikTok has made these kids like infinitely smart, and I say it humbly, because it's evolving. Like, like if you look at it, it was like YouTube and everything, to where you have 20, 30-minute videos on how to do things. They just summed it up into 30 seconds now. Like, hot wire a car used to be a red and black wire and taking your time. Now it's iPhone charger, go and run, to where like it's evolving. So if we don't adapt to the technology that we're putting out, it's going to be a big problem. And you notice it in other countries. That's why it's so, and I'm not glorifying like Korea, but it's a younger leader. And that's what it is. They start having younger leaders because they understand the culture's changing, and I still think that they have people with wisdom in higher places that are around them to tell them, hey, you should do this, and then he'll make it his own way. And I feel like, like this presidential race is going to be very interesting. That for one, it's a woman running, which is understandably amazing. And it's a younger woman running, and that's it. And you look at the narrative to where like Trump's campaign said they had to change the narrative. They don't even want to debate Kamala until after they nominate her, because they got to go back to the drawing board, because it was going to be two old guys arguing about their golf swings at first. And now it's totally changed to where like, I got this guy as my VP. He talks about women. Trump's doing this, and it's like now you got a prosecutor. It's gonna be a nice little soap opera. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm up to watch it and see it because I feel like it's gonna be a dramatic change in history right now. You know, we've already seen part of it, and it needs to happen to where that's the first step. You know, and I feel like once that happens, a lot of our Senate races, our mayors, our city council is going to change because it's going to give the youth a chance to see that, okay, we can go into this position. And that's what they are. You know, they're already doing it. You know, AI is making their resumes and they're working from home and they're creating their own thing to where, you know, these youth, it's their world now. And I feel like, you know, if that change does happen and we have the first Black woman president, it's going to bring so much hope to the youth and the generation right now, you know, because they'll see a new light. And just in that alone, you know, we need a different light in this country because we're going through a dark hole right now, you know. But that's just my thoughts on it, you know, and I love it to where every day it could change, but I just feel like the journey for my grief is just like, just trying to find a way to make logic out of the life now. And that's my logic to it is you need that middle person that could understand you, you know. And like I told my mom, you got the cool uncle and the uncle everybody wants to beat up. You know, I'm the cool uncle. And, you know, and that's the narrative to where you can talk to the kids and understand them. They'll tell you the things that they can't tell their parents. And that's why I always say, like, you know, people say it takes a, you know, takes a family to raise, you know, it takes a village to raise a, you know, a kid. I don't know the analogy, but
I think that's right. Yep, it takes a village.
It takes a village to raise, but I feel like that's it right there. You know, you want to make sure these kids have someone to go and speak to, and not someone that's just going to harp on them and yell at them, and understand them at the same way. Tell them, here, Mom, have you ever tried this? And then they try and they start liking it, but it makes it hard for these kids because once you do something, you're on edge everywhere you go unless you get out of town. And I always see my girls at a different light when they're out of town. We just went to LA for my wife's birthday, and they let loose and was relaxed because their head is not constantly looking at what's that kid doing over there. You know, it's sad for a 14-year-old to be looking like that. My 14-year-old really observes and says, I don't want to be here. And she won't even go to South City no more. She does not. And I envy her because I don't like that one. I feel like something always happens. But, you know, you can't hold them forever to where I told my 14-year-old, I said, you just got to enjoy it and just be careful. Avoid crowds and, you know, you get in and go have fun. But I try to take them on more trips because kids can't be kids no more in Seattle. Because once you do something further away, you don't know who you're going to see somewhere. And then once they do see someone, you got to handle your situation or it's going to look like that you're not respected. So it sucks. It totally sucks for kids these days. I just hope something can change right away. And the first thing is the gun violence, you know, and I feel like if you got the proper paperwork and you're old enough, you should have anything you want. Registered and all. I will never take that from nobody. But if you don't, you should be put under the jail for what you do because you shouldn't have it. Like, you know, it's just like drugs. We're allowing all this open market. And now we can't even control it. No matter if you go arrest everybody on 3rd Avenue, there's not enough cops to arrest them because you don't have enough no more. So it's like we allow it so long and now we can't even fix a problem because the wound's been open so long that it's infected. And they say, if you don't cut cancer off at the arm, it's going to spread and eventually it's going to be over. So like, you know, it sucks, you know, but I just feel like we're always chasing the solution instead of being in front of the problem. And I feel like we're never going to get to the end result of what we want because we're always chasing.
Thank you so much. Oh, Brad, would you like to go ahead first?
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for sharing all that, Larry. Thank you for sharing your story and, you know, how you overcame that hard time and how you really stepped up to the plate to, you know, be the leader of your family and to continue to take care of your daughters and to try to provide them good experiences despite all the pain that they've seen from their brother to, now their cousin who also lost their life. When I worked for a gun violence prevention nonprofit, I was doing some phone calls to try to get people to vote for candidates that we were endorsing. And I was working or making calls out of Tacoma for Mayor Woodard's. And, when I would call people, a lot of them would say, I don't even really want to vote because the issue of gun violence is just getting worse in our community. And one voter in particular told me a story about, how she was sick of the guns. And she said she was in her apartment complex and, a guy had a gun on his hip that was just visible, clear as day. And he started, I think he started like carrying it, was just being careless with it. And, she said she spoke to him and said, why do you have that? Like, why are you carrying that gun? And he was like, I got to protect myself out here, basically if I don't have it on me, then I'm lacking, I got to stay ready type of thing. And I really do think that speaks to the culture we have in America of fear as guns as a means of protection, because so many people end up getting guns and stocking up on guns because, like you said, if they do something, then they're worried that's going to come back to get them. So then they feel like they got to stay ready. And it's just this perpetual cycle of, people feeling like they got to stay ready because they got to look over their shoulder and their friend got shot. So now they're like, oh crap, am I going to get shot? Because I know them. And then everyone's just walking around toting guns because everyone's afraid that they're going to get shot. And so I feel like what we need to tap into is that ultimately what that is living in fear. When you feel the need to do that and, you have a society where people need to strap up because they're scared, that means that everyone's living in fear. And on top of that, getting on the issue of police brutality, when we also, see disproportionate police violence in Black communities, then it gets to the point where a lot of Black people feel like, well, I can't even people that are unarmed, you see all the unarmed shootings of Black people. And then it gets to a point where people are in their communities and they're like, well, I can't even trust the police. So now I really got to strap up because if I call them, is something going to happen to me? And so it's just this constant cycle of chaos that I really feel like you said sometimes feels hopeless, because how do you remedy this problem? And I feel like we put a lot of Band-Aid solutions on it when really the solution is, to educate our kids, to provide them safe environments, make sure that they're getting educated on these things early, because these older leaders are so focused on, in my opinion, passing laws, which is one aspect of it. But really people have to see the trauma that's carried on. It's this trauma, like what happened with your son, and then his friends feel like they got to stay ready, and it's just this continuous cycle of trauma that we're not addressing. And it's heartbreaking to see that, how it impacts our community and families, and, people not even feeling safe in the neighborhoods they grew up anymore because of what happened. And, thank you also for sharing about your son, and his kind heart, his kind soul, because I'm sure many of us know what it's like. I've done things that are stupid and it's like, man, why did I do that? I'm better than that. I know better than that. And I know in my heart, like, I'm better than that. But sometimes, bad associations just lead to, sometimes you might do bad things because you want to fit in, or like, Tiana mentioned earlier, people find community. And so, sometimes they go against their, moral beliefs to kind of stick in with the crowd. And, that can have horrible consequences because he wasn't even a part of it that day. So yeah, just thank you for sharing all that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate your words, and you're right. Like I said to myself, passing these laws, all these mayors need to just join hands and walk down to Olympia and just say, hey, let's talk about the gun violence. And that's what it is in all these cities. They go down there and handle that because that's the biggest result you can get out of a city. You can handle gun violence, everything else will play a great factor. I understand we got the levy and all this other stuff, taxes. Drugs and violence are the main things we have to address right now. From the shootings on Aurora to my son getting killed to Alderwood Mall, a random little girl getting killed, being with her family, and I feel like they're not tapping into it. And every time I speak to a politician, when I go to a networking event, it sucks that you get brushed off, because they know the issue. I just wish that they would just go down to the Capitol and tackle it, and I'm going to make a chance. I'm going to try to go down there one time and see. And I've already put my name in the hat to when they do go down there with the chamber to speak on it. And that's one thing that I do speak on. When there's on gun violence, they do invite me. And I spoke at City Hall one time about it. And I didn't realize that it caught like 72,000 views on TikTok. Not on TikTok, on Twitter. I didn't know someone recorded it. But it's just, putting the word out there, because, we still got to live in this world, and we want a future for ourselves. We don't want to live in fear, like you say. We want to enjoy each other, our neighbor of every color, every race. We want to feel safe. And it's hard to where I get off work because I work a second job. I have to come all the way back downtown to get my 19-year-old who works for me for the summer, because I can't even trust her to catch the bus home or walk through downtown, because I'm not allowing her to. I just won't. There's no reason for it because of all the things you see just in this off 3rd Avenue. And it's horrible. It's horrible just to know that you can't even go out after a certain time in the evening because of so many things happen in Seattle to where it changes. I feel like it's like Gotham City, I would say, at nighttime here in downtown Seattle. By daytime, it's beautiful and gorgeous. The Space Needle is alive, the wheel, tourism. But as it turns dark, Gotham comes out in this city. And then it goes away by morning as you start going back to where people start seeing it getting cleaned up, so you don't see it as much. It's like it's another world in the evening time. It's so crazy to see that in Seattle. And I hope it changes for the better.
Thank you for sharing. First off, so many points. First was when you talked about how fleeting life is, and that a lot of these kids are so capable and they're so advanced, they're so intelligent, and we need to, as a community, invest in our youth because, as you said, gun violence is a symptom of these larger issues. It's poverty. It's a lack of equitable education. It's a lack of affordable housing. It's these family units that are not able to make ends meet, which is leading to, like you said, going outside and feeling unsafe. And it's so unfortunate, that you feel as a parent that your kids can't even go out and enjoy this beautiful city that we live in the Pacific Northwest and enjoy downtown and be with their friends and not be in fear. So I just really appreciate you sharing that point as a community member, and also speaking to the fact that gun violence is a public health crisis, and also Black lives and brown lives taken at the hands of police violence is as well. And that is something that it seems politicians have not been standing up for on either side or taking action, because this issue not only plagues the entire community, but it plagues our community disproportionately. And it's time to look at what are the factors that are leading to these just devastating effects and this disparate harm. So I just really thank you for bringing that up, and also going out and speaking and sharing your son's legacy, because I think people are easily able to detach from this issue if it has not affected them. When you're seeing the vast wealth disparity here in the Seattle area, I mean, you're down in Tacoma, but if you see the wealth here, and these people are in these safer communities because they have the resources that they need. These kids are not turning to this violence to find, hope and to find stability and to find people that will be supportive and rally around them and, feel safe because they have the resources they need. So what are we missing in these other disadvantaged communities? And I don't like to say underserved communities. I like to say systematically excluded communities, because that is what it is. These kids have been systematically excluded. It starts with education. It starts with investing in social services. It starts with getting these kids involved in after school activities and helping them see what they can do, and that there's more to just surviving day to day. And that's what I'm hoping, with your story. That's why we wanted to bring you on, is that people need to see, we need to set these kids up to thrive. These kids are just looking day to day. How could I get by? They're, buying guns to be able to protect themselves because they're scared about what's going to happen next if I get involved with this person. And now they're looking around their shoulder, hyper vigilant. And it's not healthy for these youth. So I just appreciate you for, again, sharing your son's legacy. And I'm hoping that this will resonate with the community and those in office, and that they'll be able to put a name to these tragedies and not just send thoughts and prayers, because I think we're now past it. This is a nationwide epidemic in our schools and our communities and, just across every single town and city. So it's something that we need to figure out, what's the action plan.
I agree what you're saying 100%. And like you said, it's a crisis going on. It's a complete crisis, and it's like we know the problem, and we're not addressing it at all. We once it happens, it goes in the public light for a little bit, but it's got to be something really bad, and when we don't even have to get into it much, but Illinois, that's just crazy, It's crazy, because we all want to feel safe. Now we're going to have to deal with that again. And, we've had the same situations here in Seattle, where, with police, crisis like that. And I'm not saying all cops are bad. And I'm never going to say it, because my mom's a sheriff and she's almost done 20 years. It just, everybody has bad apples. And we need to dig deep, and we need to get rid of a lot of these bad apples and stop covering for the people that are bad. And I think that's what's happening right now. Is we keep covering for someone else, and we're losing people in the middle of covering for them all the time. Because nobody wants to own it and like you say, go to the forefront and be a voice and say, this is wrong. And that's what it needs. Someone needs to be told what is wrong and what is right, and stop thinking they're above the law. And that's all the way around, from higher up in office all the way down to just an everyday citizen. Rules are rules, and they're not meant to be broken. They're not meant to be bent. They're meant to be modified, yes, with reason and proper things. But when you break the rules, you got to pay the cost. And I feel like that's what's not happening, and that's why where we're at right now in this world.
Absolutely. Similar to with the kids these days, I agree with what you said about, bad apples. And unfortunately, some people in the police force almost act like they're in their own gang. And, if they do something bad and if they shoot somebody, they got to look over their shoulder and they got to protect themselves. But they're just in a position to where they're actually trusted to enforce the law. So it's a flip side of the coin where it's, almost like same mentality, but they're the ones, enforcing it. And of course, that's not everybody, but, that's often, I think, what we see is, if one of them does something wrong, they'll rally behind each other and protect each other and do what they got to do to make sure that, they don't get caught and they don't go down, and same with these kids that are in these groups, in the community. They cover for each other when they do wrong, and, they don't want to go down. And so it's almost like, what model is that setting? It really does seem like it's kind of at the heart of our culture. And, people say, oh, Black people need to fix their culture. Kind of seems like it's an American issue. It kind of just seems like the mob mentality type of thing, eat or be eaten, every man for themselves, form your own gang or clique, and, may the strong survive. That's just kind of how we go about life here. And I wholeheartedly agree with what Tiana said about thoughts and prayers. It's beyond that. And I know not everybody is super spiritual, but, to me, the word says faith without works is dead. So you can give all the thoughts and all the prayers that you want, but if you don't act on something, you're never going to fix the problem. You got to take action. So, every time someone gets shot and we see, the politician, oh, thoughts and prayers, well, where's the work to stop it? You can say anything, but what are you doing? And I think that leads really well into our next question. According to independent research from the Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund, a 501c3 organization that focuses on awareness and educational work related to gun violence prevention. More than 120 people are killed by guns nationally daily, and Black people are disproportionately impacted at 2.6 times in comparison to their white counterparts. So with all this loss that we experience daily in our country from gun violence, what advice can you give to those dealing with this type of loss and to their loved ones due to gun violence?
You just keep pushing. And like you say, have faith. I'm not going to say I had a lot of faith beforehand, but I start noticing the signs. I had an old boss that I'm good friends with. She lost her son to, he thought he took a Percocet and he took a fentanyl pill. And he was 23. So she was the first person I called because I didn't understand. Like, she met my son. So she was talking to my son about her son. So it was kind of crazy. And she always says, just look for the signs. When you see the signs, that means, something good, or, that means you're doing something positive and something's going to happen, or, think about it, have faith, because things are right there in your eyes, and I look at it to where, like, if I see a rainbow, I always think that my son is watching me, because after he passed, there was a rainbow over our house. So anytime I see a rainbow, I think it's like always my son now. But, we got invited to Portland. For my family, one thing I did was I was just sitting up on us in December, and of course, you sit up and just scroll on TikTok, and I got to take him to a basketball game in Portland. And I was like, he loved basketball and he loved Oregon. He met some friends in Oregon, and then they finally came up here. So I reached out to Portland Trailblazers and they invited us to a game. And in the same instant, I was like, I'm going to just shoot out there an email and see what happened. I shot an email to Nike, a Nike rep, and Nike invited us for a private tour of their campus. And when we went down there, I work in hotels, so we had a nice little hotel discount. The room we checked into was 624 in the Hilton. And it means two things significantly to me that it's crazy. My son's nickname was 624 Sama. I don't know why, but I always thought he did that because he's a mama's boy. My wife's birthday is 624. So, but we were in room 624. So it was the weirdest thing ever. And we were in Portland, to where we were like around the corner from the last hotel we stayed at with my son. So we went to the exact spot. So I always look at the little signs, I've never noticed that Oregon has an O in it for Osama. I don't know why he picked that name. And it's the craziest thing, because now when I see an O, I think of that. I think of my son every time, because I bought him an Oregon jersey too that sits in his closet. So when I think of Oregon, I think of my son. And it's the little things that you think of, and you notice the things to where he didn't know I was going to work here. So now I'm in a place to where I feel his spirit every day. I didn't get to see the last videos of him in the hallways because when I started, the cameras went, they record over each other. But then to know that my daughter, my 14-year-old birthday, she wanted to stay in a hotel, which I don't understand why kids just want to sleep in a hotel and instead of just going out of town. So I allowed her to stay at my hotel, and she brought like 4 of her cousins. One of them was my 22-year-old cousin. So being that he stayed here, now I got 2 souls that's been in this hotel that are not here in this world no more. So I always say, like, you got to look at the signs where there's a reason why I'm where I'm at, and if you dive deeper into my wife's family, we lost a cousin years ago. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but he was a up-and-coming rapper in Seattle. They called him, his name was Trae McCoy, and they called him Juice to God. He got gunned down around Seattle Center, and that was 0.3 miles away from where I work at. He was leaving the show, and I guess the shots rang out at him, and he got hit. And it's the weirdest thing ever to know that I'm only a couple blocks away from where that happened. And I didn't even know that until I started working, and one day I called his mom, and I was like, where did he die at? And I walked right by the area where he got shot at, and I didn't even know it. So you just, I'm aware of all the signs, and and just constantly double checking and making sure that, okay, if I see a crowd of kids this way, I go this way. And it sucks, you know. I've been robbed at gunpoint in a hotel. It was just the odds of, I had 30 rooms of law enforcement in my hotel that night in Virginia. They were going to look at the newest toys at a convention center. Out of all nights, I'm the guy that gets robbed working overnight at a hotel with 30 rooms of law enforcement with unmarked cars in the parking lot. And it was like the longest 30 seconds of my life. But there was no cop around. There was no cop around. I left the doors open because I was like, oh, I'm safe. And it just shows you that it doesn't matter. Anything can happen at any will. And you just gotta live life and just enjoy each other. And if we can learn to do that, we might be a little bit better. There's still things you gotta do. You still gotta work. You can't you're not gonna be handed free money. You gotta earn everything you get. And I think that's the narrative now, is that they want it handed to them. They want you to do it for them. They don't want to know how do you make pancakes from scratch, or how do you do this? No, I'm just gonna go DoorDash it. It's more of a convenient thing to where I'm gonna let someone else do it. Then I'm gonna be mad if they touch my food, or I'm gonna lose my cool and be all upset to where it's a tragedy, man. It's a tragedy. But gun violence on black people, black brown people, it's getting worse and worse. And I hope this can fix it. So I feel like I'm hoping there's a big change coming, because I use the example, and I don't want to even say it. January 6th, when all that happened at the Capitol, had that been black or brown people, it would be a massacre in the U.S., the worst massacre in the U.S. ever happened. It would have not been all that. We would have not. I don't even think we would have made it to the Capitol. We would have never made it.
There's no way. We would have not even been inside. They would have stopped that.
Because when we lived in Virginia and we drove up to D.C., I crossed the barrier to ask a question to a guard one time with my daughter in the stroller. He yelled at me, says, "Sir, step back behind the line." Like, I just wanted to ask him how to get to the Lincoln Memorial. And I'm telling you, it was crazy tight. So I don't understand how, like, some people can get away with doing what happened in there. And I'm being honest, because it's all on video, to where, like, I'm not telling no story, to where, look at what happened. Like, that's uncalled for. They got all the way through it, and how long it happened for. And it was incited. It was egged on by someone of power. And it just shows you that if you have the power, you can do whatever you want. And that's what I feel like is being told into our country. If you have power over someone, you can tell them to do this. If you have power over these kids, you can tell them to do whatever you want and not get in trouble. So it starts from higher up, and I feel like there needs to be a change in leadership. And that's what's happening right now. If the president can say the things he said and then go into hiding somewhere, and then the Capitol gets ransacked, that's a problem. That's a big problem. It's like we're making movies now in real life, like White House Down. And that's exactly what it looked like. But the only difference was only one person died in that situation. And that was a lady that got shot by the guard that one time. Only one person died. And I feel like that was a tragedy of how it happened. But that one guard was trying to defend herself from her breaking in there. But had that been, we would have not got that close at all. We would have nowhere close to it. We can't even call a police officer and have them take our statement without being gunned down, because we got to move pots of water off the stove. So it's like it sucks, because it's all truth and everything's recorded. Those two situations are both recorded, and a helpless person talking to an officer versus people walking up to a Capitol against armed officers. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the end result was a black person dead that didn't have a gun. and white people only got little to no time in jail for what they did. And then they went after Nancy Pelosi's husband with a hammer again after that. Like wow. Like it just sucks because when you really dive into it, you really do see that we do need a new leadership and we need a change and shift in energy. I think that's the best way to say it. We need a shift in the energy, and I love that the narrative that's coming out to where, you know, we're touching teachers, like you said. I'm not trying to be a political person right now, but Kamala was right. She went to teachers first, and she's touching all the generations that need to help and build this, you know, this U.S. And that's what I think needs to happen. We don't need the billionaires and the millionaires. We need the people that are actually teaching our kids and taking care of us to where I feel like it'll be a lot better. We will be a lot better. It's going to take a lot of time and work, but that's how you heal a wound.
Wow. Thank you so much for diving into all of that. There was a lot there. And with power comes responsibility. That was one of the main takeaways that arose out of that for me. And yes, we need to have people in office that are willing to go into the communities directly and actually acknowledge and address the needs, and then provide follow-up for these people so that they feel safe, like you said, because we can't even call for the help, you know, that we need. And you see this time and time again. And luckily we do have cameras now and technology to be able to record these incidents, because I think there was a lack of awareness in simply the fact that we are in danger when we do try to use these systems that are in place to purportedly protect us. And so now I think that is also bringing this issue to people that have been outside of our community, seeing that there is something that actually needs to happen, and that, you know, this is unacceptable. And I wanted to go back to the point you talked about with your son about noticing the signs. And first off, that was so moving. And that's such a cool experience you had to be able to, you know, go down to that game and then to like feel your son there with you. And I don't think that's coincidence. I know for me, like, I feel that you were meant to, you know, have that particular room, and that you were meant to connect with that person and get those tickets to go to that game to be able to feel your son there with you. And he was experiencing that too. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And then also, I'm grateful that you were okay after being a subject of a robbery. I mean, that also, I think speaks to the hope that you hold, and that you're grateful to be here every day, and that you see the value in life, and that you were kept here for a reason. So, just grateful that you're able to share that. And moving forward, as we're kind of getting to the tail end of this conversation that's been so moving, we would like to use this remaining time for you to speak about your son, any other good memories that you have, and just any last points that you would like to make.
My son, he was him. He lived life. He was unapologetic, and he lived the life the way he wanted to live. I will say that, you know, he was a good kid, a knucklehead. And I always say, we don't understand when our parents tell us to where your kids are going to be 10 times worse than you. And I feel like, I don't think the analogy is correct, but I do feel like I would say it's like multiplicity, like the movie. You know, when you clone something, you get a good one, a middle one, or you get a dud. I think that's the best way to look at it. You know, I don't know which one my son was. I say he may have been the middle one. He may have been I give my oldest the smart one, the middle one. My youngest, I'm not gonna say she's done because she's still developing. But I will say this, and this is where you can know change is good. We took her out of Tacoma School with my youngest, and we put her in Puyallup. She went from C's and D's to she's going into ninth grade, but she finished with all A's and 1B. And I want to give her a new start because I didn't want people to know her as Trae's sister and what she went through. And she loves it in Puyallup. And keep in mind, this is the weirdest part. She gets to see tension tantrums of other race of kids. Like, they put them in a room. My daughter said, Dad, there was like 8 teachers in a room, and this kid was throwing chairs everywhere, and they just stood in there and watched them throw the chair. And she was like, Dad, and she was like, Dad, this one boy called me a B word. I was on the phone with her when she was walking. I was like, okay, I'm going to come up to the school, and I'm going to go catch the kid, and we're going to go, I want him to go tell his mom. And I never found the kid, but one of her friends hemmed the boy up at lunch and told him don't ever say it again. But I told my daughter something powerful, and she did it. It was so amazing. I said, hey, if you ever get this itch and someone's picking at you, go tell. And she looked at me. She was like, I said, go tell the office. I said, just do it one time and tell me how it feels. And one day this girl kept messing with her. She don't know why. And she went and told the office. And this is how slick she was. She said she went back to class and said she had to go to the bathroom. She knew they was going to call her. She went to the bathroom by the office, and she watched them call her in there. And she said the girl ended up getting suspended. They checked her backpack for something because they had another incident to where someone said she had she had alcohol, a vape pen, and something else, and she got suspended. And I asked my daughter this. I said, how did it feel to tell? She said, it felt good. She said, it felt good to tell. I was like, and that's the thing is, you don't have to fight. You can fight with your words. You know, sometimes telling is better because it switches the narrative on the other person to where it takes the eye off you. And I always tell her to keep your head down and do what you got to do to keep the spotlight off you, so you don't have to feel like nothing, like, you know, people are watching you. You know, and that's our new thing is we move quietly. We go out of town. We don't send the pictures until after we come back, but we enjoy our moments to where that's the best feeling. I don't even allow my daughters to let her friends have their locations. So we're like, your friend don't need to know where you're at all times. No, you don't, don't even do that because that could pass on to someone else. And that's what I feel like is happening in society. These kids are being set up, and I hate to say these boys, young men, are being set up by women because that's what they're young teenagers. And it sucks because that's the one thing that these boys have that they like, and that's getting them. Like the boys off I-5, they got set up by a girl, and they lured them out by a girl. Out of everything in the world, you can lure a boy out by a girl. You get the right girl, they'll lure you out right then and there. And my son was talking to a female on the phone. She's a good girl, but that's what intrigues it. And it, you just gotta be aware. You gotta be aware. And I feel like I'm hoping in our society I can let my son's legacy be known that, you can be whatever you want, be yourself, you can be a kind heart, and you can make a mistake and fix it, and that's the one thing I want people to know. Just because you did something wrong, you can still change a bad situation, turn it positive. And that's what I'm trying to do now because I'm not going to live in grief my whole life. I'm going to celebrate my son. I'm going to cry. I'm going to walk around the block, and I've done it plenty of times. I got plenty of tears to go around, but I'm hoping that I celebrate and I make a name for my son. His AU team they created an award for him, the Swiss Trae Award, sportsmanship, and they named the team after him, called Swiss Trae 16 Youth because he died at 16. So in every book that they go play a game, even like they just came back from Vegas, my son's name is in that book now. So it's always going to live on. And I think that, that's one of those things where I'm appreciative of that organization Swish, because it's showing these kids that you can build a legacy still without trying to go out there and do, I got to go crash out and rob somebody and do these things to show that I'm top ops and all this craziness that they speak of. You can do it another way. And there's all other ways to do it. You just got to put your mind to it and just be that person and go forward in life. And just know that, sky's the limit. And these kids feel like there's no hope, but there is. They have so much life in them and so much going for them that I hope that, we get a new direction.
That's so amazing about your son's basketball team, and he's still inspiring all those kids today. So, that's something that can bring you joy as you move forward in your life, knowing that his legacy is being seen by so many people and by the people that will be listening into this as well, and will continue to, expand in the community.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. I like the story you shared about your daughter, because I know in the Black community, like, we don't like to tell, they say snitches get stitches. But sometimes it's necessary because, when you try to handle issues on your own, it's just going to create more problems for you. And it reminds me of, back in the day in high school, and Tiana was there to witness this when, we grew up in a predominantly white high school, and when people were racist, I would start, arguing with them all. I would start cussing them out and yelling at them and getting online saying, why are you being racist and all this stuff. And I would always try to fight everybody on my own. And, one of the kids that, was doing this was like, well, if people are actually being racist, why don't you just tell them then? Like, kind of, but not saying it in a way that was like encouraging me to tell, but saying, oh, if this is really happening, then you would tell. So I said, okay. So whenever I would see something racist, I started going to the admin office and saying, hey, do you see this person said the N-word or posted a swastika online? Like, it was really bad when we grew up. And so I started telling too, because that way it takes the harm that you can cause yourself and forces those people to take accountability for their actions, because you don't always have to be the bringer of justice. There are systems in place for those things, people that are supposed to deal with that. Right. So if people keep picking and doing horrible things, I encourage folks, go tell the people that are supposed to deal with it and don't put that burden on yourself.
Shift the narrative. And that's the biggest thing, is these kids don't shift the narrative to afterwards. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell? And then the kids always say, well, why didn't you see it? And that's the crazy part, because we can't read minds. And I always tell my daughter that I can't read your mind. I don't know what you're thinking, so I need you to help me out. All I can do is guide you and give you ideas and suggestions. So, I feel like, that's the biggest thing, right there. And one last thing I will say, we say about signs. Signs is amazing. Mr. Brad, I will say this. In Virginia, I worked with a gentleman at a hotel, and his name was Brad. And I'm almost certain it was. I'm gonna have to look it up after it. It wasn't Blackburn, but it's Burn. I'm gonna look it up while I'm talking to you. And it's crazy because he was a funny dude, cool guy, and he was our valet guy for a hotel, and he was the funniest dude ever. And it was like Brad Blackburn. Yep. Virginia Beach. It's Brandon. Brandon Blackburn, and he was a good friend of mine. And he's the most funniest guy ever. And I'm not trying to be funny. My dog, so I breeded pit bulls before my son died, and I had one left. And I was like, I'm just gonna give her away. I ended up keeping her because she I found a picture of her sleep on my son's face. And we end up naming her Tiana.
That's actually funny.
My youngest daughter, named, and I won't give her up. And now I have 4 dogs. Because
that's so funny.
And I always say the sign, it's the little things that catch me.
Yeah.
That catches my eye, everything that I do. And I'm like,
what are the odds? Yeah.
It was meant for me, because that day I met you guys, I was coming from a different networking event. I was coming from a whole different event. I just knew I had to get there, even though it was just a interview. I wanted to attend it so bad, and I made it to it. So I did 2 events in one day, on top of working a full shift. So that's why I felt like it was meant for me to hear that story. And once it was over, I approached Mr. Brad. He didn't come to me. It was meant for me to talk to him, and then he reached out, and I was like, wow, because I wanted to donate some of my son's clothes and some of our clothes, because I was like, we always toss things, and my wife always wants to donate, and my son likes to give away his stuff. So I was like, this is my chance to donate, because Brad would say anything helps. And I'm like, we have so much shoes, Jordans, and all this stuff that once I say we're done with it, we just trash it. And it'd be still stuff that's wearable, and all you need is a rag to wipe them down. And it's so sad to where, like, that's why I was like, I reached out to Brad. I was like, yeah, we're going to donate. Like, I have 3 bags of clothes. And I don't even know how many jackets I have in the closet. I could get rid of probably 20 jackets right now. And it's so crazy because that's my thing. I feel like right now, my son said, give to those who need, because he's always been one that wanted to feed the homeless. That's one thing he loved to do, give food and money to people. So I feel like, you know, it's those little signs that I see. And that's some, I'm like, when I sat there for y'all interview, those are the first thing I was like, I know a brand. I thought his name was Brad. I ain't gonna lie, but I was like, I just looked at. I was like, I knew the Blackbird. I was like, and I seen Tiana. I was like, wow, this is crazy. I was like, and then it just start listening to the story and unmasking. I was like, my wife is unmasked with her ADHD, and I was listening to you guys talk about it. I was like, I'm in the right place that I need to be, because I was trying to understand my wife unmasking and going through what she's going through. So I was like, wow. And that's why I'm glad I'm here. And now I'm talking to you guys. So it's amazing to see how this transformation happened.
Wow, I agree. And I really do believe in the signs too. And Blackburn is not a common last name, especially, you know, so I don't take that as a coincidence. And also when you told me your son's, full name was Larry Marshall III, I'm Brad Blackburn III. And yeah. And so I kind of mentally took that as a sign, like I'm the third too. Like it's all interesting how it all came together and how you made it. And, you know, that's one thing I told Tiana when I heard your story. I was like, this needs to be heard, because there are so many people that are hurting that have these experiences. And, you know, our hope is that someone who's gone through something similar will listen to you and your story and how you've persevered, and, you know, how you honor your son to this day, and just give back and see how you continue to give back to the community. And so, you know, that's something that I believe in. I will tell you, I don't think the rainbow over your house was a coincidence. You know, I think things happen for a reason, you know, and I think a lot of people ignore the signs in nature and, you know, the numbers and things like that, when really I think that, in my belief, is sometimes, you know, the divine, you know, God, the angels, whatever you believe personally, you know, your passed over loved ones, that's them communicating with you and letting them know they're still here. And even with you ending up working at the hotel, one of the last ones that your son stayed at, I think, you know, you feeling his energy, I really do believe in those things and think all those things are real. And I don't think there is such thing as coincidence when you really start diving into life. And, you know, my grandma passing is something that kind of opened my eyes to that and the signs and things that I experienced afterwards. And, you know, I really do appreciate you, you know, speaking on those things, because a lot of people might think, oh, the signs, the numbers, like he's just looking into it, but no, I think it's really real. So I want to validate your experience for sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like when you really dive into I feel like me and my son passed each other on the way. Like when my son was going on he caught a bus to TCC, and on the street that we live on, there's only the bus that he caught. I think I passed him because of when I looked at the time I got my McDonald's food and the time he left. I think we passed each other, me driving and him on the bus. That's how you, like, you know, if you really dive into it, I could look into it. But like you say, what's the odd of his friends robbing a client, the barber that me and my son go to, and the barber actually was trying to speak life into my son, like talking to him about what you got going on. Like he cut his hair while my son was on house arrest. My son came into there because he was going to homecoming. So like he spoke life into my son. So that's how this world works. You got a barber that's speaking life into one kid, and then he's cutting the guy that took some kids to kill my son. That's how close and cold this world is. Like each person have a different narrative, but just because you talk to a bad person doesn't make you a bad person. And that's the thing people don't get. They just associate you with bad people. So my son is associated with a bad person because he took a picture with him. So does that make, you know, and that's the part that we look at now. We all are being guilty by association when we didn't do nothing wrong. So hopefully that can change. So, but man, I appreciate you guys so much. Like, this is amazing. And I wish you guys the most success in doing this. And I feel like sky's the limit for you too. Like, I feel like you guys are going to take off doing this, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm so glad and honored. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I want to say this, I speak for my family. We thank you. The Marshalls, thank you guys.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And I echo everything Brad said. I believe that you were meant to walk into our event that night, and it just happened that you were in the area and that we connected so that we could bring you onto this so you could share your journey and be able to help, so many other families that are grieving, share the legacy of your son, and also bring awareness to this issue of gun violence. So I'm just grateful to share this space with you, Larry, and also to your family for sharing their story. And just thank you so much. And as we wrap up, we ask all of our guests this question, and it speaks to what Blackness means to all of us, the significance of how our cultures influence our lives, and just speaks to the depth and richness within our community. So our last question is, what does Blackness mean to you?
To me now, it is different. It used to be that you just want to be popular. You wanted people to notice you. Now to me, it speaks leadership. Like, as I get older, I want to be remembered as my name. My name is everything. And that's why I look at it. Blackness, I'm Larry Marshall Jr. And I want that to mean everything. I want it to mean the world. I want it to be known to where if you Google my name, you see my son, my family, and Blackness is who I am. It's me. And I want people to know that you can be whatever you want. I started out in this business dishwashing, and now I'm a sales manager, 14 years in hotels. But, where I come from, where I've been, is a whole nother story, but I'm still standing, and Blackness is strong. The color itself speaks. It's dark, but it's solid, and that's what I look at. As we look at our background, and you look at our phones, Blackness is everywhere. Blackness, it's the color black, and it's just a solid color. Because you don't know what to expect out of that color. But it's solid and strong, and it goes everywhere. So to me, it's just, Blackness to me, it's just I look at it as strong, and standing, as my kids say, stand in your 10. That's my new one, stand in your 10.
I love that. I agree. We are strong. That's been one of the main themes that's come out of every single one of our conversations is our resilience as a community, and just how we influence so many different, parts of culture. And I think you spoke to that very well. So I appreciate you sharing that. And just lastly, you wanted to turn it over to you. Any last words? And again, just wanted to thank you as well.
I just want to say you guys have a great weekend. And
thank you.
I'm honored. Like I said, I'm honored again. And I look forward to watching this and watching you guys grow and catch you guys at another networking event. And like I say, if you guys are ever around downtown Seattle, please stop by. And like I say, I appreciate you guys, and I wish you guys all the success you guys deserve, and it's going to come to you guys.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you.
We'll be in touch with you.
Yeah, right. We'll be staying in touch, and in the same way you're honored, we're honored to have you here. And God bless you and your family. Seriously.
You guys take care. Have a great day.
Thank you as well. This has been so transformative for me. So I just am very grateful to you. And have a great weekend, Larry.
All right, take care. All right, Brad.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
We are so grateful for your support, and thank you for listening to Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana
and Brad.
Thank you so much.